All right, we are ready to get started on your reading comprehension for today. This packet should be in the English section of your notebook. This is the second page, the second passage in the packet called the Boston Massacre. You should also have a question sheet right after it. If you don't have this packet, there should be one on the shelf underneath the Promethean board. As always, just make sure, let's see, it doesn't have a spot for a name here, but I want you to put your name and date on your question sheet. That way I can know what day you did it and who did it. I want to be able to give you credit for your hard work. Okay, I'm going to get started reading. I want you to follow along with me as I read. I'm going to be highlighting it, and then we'll go back and we will highlight the answers when I'm done. So, the name of the passage is The Boston Massacre. It's the evening of March 5th, 1770, in Boston, in the British colony of Massachusetts. British soldiers are changing the guard at the customs house, where British taxes are levied and collected. A confrontation occurs between colonists and the soldiers. Shots are fired, and 3 colonists are dead on the spot. 2 more die the next day. This event is called the Boston Massacre, and it's easy to say that it was the cause of the American Revolution. What really happened and why? Paragraph number 2. Great Britain had spent huge sums of money waging the French and Indian War from 1754 to 1763 in North America to gain control of more land. At the same time, the British were fighting the related 7 Years' War in Europe. When the wars ended in 1763, Great Britain needed money and passed the Townshend Acts, which heavily taxed everyday imported items like glass, paper, and tea in the colonies. This word right here, imported, that means that it came in from Britain on ships that crossed the ocean. So these were things that they couldn't make in the colonies, so they got them from Britain because they were further advanced and had more things available than the colonies did. Okay, moving on. When these taxes caused unrest among the colonists in 1768, Great Britain sent troops to Boston to maintain control and protect the tax collectors who levied customs duties on imported products. That just means the tax collectors were the ones who went around and said, hey, you owe me this much in taxes, and people were getting angry because they didn't want to pay Britain taxes because they were in the colonies and they didn't think that they should have to pay their taxes to Britain because they didn't live there. These soldiers could be assigned to live in private homes with the colonists. There was 1 British soldier in Boston for every 4 residents. Boston was an occupied city, and tensions were high between soldiers and residents. There were frequent riots. All right, so it's when it says that, where'd it go? Okay, the soldiers could be assigned to live in private homes with the colonists. That means that a British soldier could just be put in anybody's house. So that would be just like if you're living in your house and the government came up and said, hey, this guy from the army needs to stay with you. You couldn't say no, so you had to let him in your house and live there and take care of, feeding him and all that, because that's just the way it was back then. It changes later on, but that's the way it was then. Okay, we'll go on with paragraph 3. The Boston Massacre began with a nighttime confrontation between a youth and a soldier in front of the customs house. A crowd gathered and grew larger when the church bells were rung to get the attention of more men. The British soldiers summoned help as well. Soon 400 men of Boston were throwing ice and snowballs at the soldiers defending the customs house, daring them to fire their muskets into the crowd. Reports say that the officer in charge called out, "Don't fire!" In the confusion, shots were fired anyway. The British immediately removed the troops from Boston and repealed the Townshend Acts in April 1770, except for the tax on tea. The officer in charge and 9 soldiers were brought to trial about 8 months later. 2 soldiers were found guilty of manslaughter, and all the others were acquitted. Boston remained quiet for several years. The Boston Massacre was later used as a rallying point by patriots who favored independence. All right, so this is all about taxes and how taxes were a big part of what started the American Revolution. And that the American Revolution is what freed the colonies from under Great Britain's control. All right, go ahead and flip to your question sheet and we will start on those. I will read the question and the choices. In order to get money from the colonies, Great Britain taxed. Okay, I remember reading that. Because remember we stopped and we talked about it, about the stuff that they got from Britain, right? Let's see. Let me skim it real quick. Great Britain. I'm looking for the word taxes. Here we go. Okay, the Townshend Acts, which heavily taxed everyday imported items like glass, paper, and tea. All right, let's see what our choices are. In order to get money from the colonies, Great Britain taxed. Okay, did they tax income, land, imported items, or farm products? Look back at what we underlined and see which one of those words you see in that highlighted portion. That is going to be your answer for number 1. All right. After you decide, circle it and move on to the next answer. Remember, if you need to pause the video or rewind at any point, you just go ahead, work at your own pace. Number 2, when the citizens of Boston protested against the heavy taxes, Great Britain, let's see, our choices are raise the taxes higher, sent troops to Boston, both A and B, or none of the above. All right, so I think I'm going to look, okay, let's look for the word protested and see if we can find what Britain did when the colonists protested. Okay, I'm just going to skim. Usually these go in order, so I'm gonna start here and work my way down. All right. Okay. Oh, I see it. Okay. Unrest. That's a lot like protested, so let's highlight that sentence. When these taxes caused unrest among the colonists, in 1768, Great Britain sent troops to Boston to maintain control and protect the tax collectors. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else about protest. That's all I see. So, all right. In that, in the green underlined part, you will find what when the citizens of Boston protested against the heavy taxes, Great Britain did what? Did they raise the taxes? Did they send troops to Boston? Both or none of them? So answer that question and we will move on to 3. One way that Bostonians protested was... All right, let's see. Let's see how they protested. Let's see what our choices are. Okay, did they riot in the street, snipers, guerrilla attacks, or all of the above? I don't remember hearing anything about snipers or guerrilla attacks in that passage. So I think just by, and we know it wouldn't be all of the above if we mark 2 of them out, I think just by the process of elimination we can figure out the answer on that one, right? Right. Let's move ahead to number 4. Where in town did the Boston Massacre occur? Okay, the Boston Massacre, was it on the Commons, along the Charles River, at the courthouse, or none of the above? So let's see. I remember I'm talking about it in the beginning. Remember it was the Customs House? Where was the Customs House? Let's see. Let me skim. Soldiers could be assigned to private homes. The Boston Massacre began with a nighttime confrontation between a youth and a soldier in front of the Customs House. A crowd gathered and grew larger when church bells were rung to get the attention of more men. The British soldiers summoned help as well. Okay, alright, it doesn't tell us exactly, but just by guessing and using my context clues, let's see if we can eliminate any of those answers. It didn't say anything about the Charles River. So, was it on the Commons or at the courthouse? Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Let's see. Alright, it says up here again, the Customs House, where British taxes are levied and collected. But yeah, because they were outside of the Customs House when the men from Boston started throwing ice and snow at them, telling them to fire, and the officer in charge said, "No, don't fire." But it wasn't at the courthouse, right? Just mark which one you think out of these 2. Was it on the Commons or at the courthouse? Because neither one of them are in there, so we're just going to kind of have to use our deduction skills and figure out which that is. Because the Commons would be kind of like the town square where everybody gathers and things happen, or the courthouse is where they actually have court. So were they in the courthouse or were they outside just in the town square? So this one would be town square. This one would be the courthouse. Okay. Get your answer mark. We're going to 5. How many Boston citizens died as a result of the Boston Massacre? I think that was up top. Or wait. Let's see. Okay. A confrontation occurs between colonists and the soldiers. Shots are fired, and 3 colonists are dead on the spot. 2 more die the next day. Alright, so there's your answer right there. 3 died right then, 2 died the next day. So that's 3 plus 2 equals the answer to number 5. Get that one marked. Moving on to number 6. One result of the Boston Massacre were soldiers withdrawn from Boston, soldiers were brought to trial, it was later used to promote the cause of American independence, or all of the above. I think that one might be D, actually. I'm going to get my pink highlighter out and we can highlight the let's see, the results of the massacre. All right. The British, if we'll start reading here, the British immediately removed troops. So they removed troops from Boston. They repealed the Townshend Act. The officer in charge and 9 soldiers were brought to trial. 2 soldiers were found guilty. The others were acquitted. Boston remained quiet for several years. And the Boston Massacre was later used as a rallying point by patriots who favored independence. So, soldiers were withdrawn from Boston. Soldiers were brought to trial. It was later used to promote the cause for American independence, or all of the above. So just look back at those pink highlighted areas and mark your answer that you think is right. When you are done, put this packet back into the English section of your notebook, and we will do the next reading passage tomorrow.